is nice. Oh. Can you hear this noise?
Yeah.
Oh.
Some special sounds effects.
Can you hear this noise? Maybe it's coming from. Maybe you should turn off all the broadcasting pages. I think it might be echo. Maybe you should turn off all the broadcasting pages. I think it might be echo. Maybe you should turn off all the broadcasting pages. I think.
Is it working better? Yeah, seems so. So do you hear us?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So maybe let's start. Right. So hello to everyone. My name is Julia Ružička, and I'm the curator of Grenoble Month of Photography Festival. And we're happy to be here all together for the talk about photography, history, memory, and photo books. So today I'm here with Benoît Caponi, who is a photographer and who is running a gallery here in Grenoble. So we are both in Grenoble. We have Tomasz Laczny, the photographer, who is in London, and we also have Aneta Kowalczyk and Grzegorz Kosmala, who are in Warsaw. Maybe just a few words to situate the month of photography to start. So it is the photography festival which takes place in Grenoble for 8 years already, and each year we have one topic which is usually connected to social and political issues, as well as both to history and to current world situation. So this year our topic is memory, and how does collective and personal memory correlate, and also how history influences our personal present, and actually where are we going with all this past and the present. And in the frame of the festival, we're happy to host here in Studio Spiral Tomasz Laczny exhibition. So maybe I will give a word to Benoît Caponi, who is running this space, to present to us a little.
So welcome. We are both in the Studio Spiral. Maybe you can see behind us some of Thomas's pictures. This exhibition was supposed to take place in November, but with the problem we all have all over the world, luckily we can postpone it, and people can see it now until next week. And as well, we couldn't have made any opening or things like that, but that's why Thomas proposed us to make this talk, so you can visit the exhibition and talk about books, because book is a very important topic in Thomas's work. So welcome, Thomas.
And maybe Thomas.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tomasz Laczny. I'm in London, and I will talk about my upcoming book and my project Erna, Helena, Ania, which I've been working on for the last 11 years. And I will also talk about the exhibition which I'm having in Grenoble, and also we will talk with Aneta and Grzegorz from Blow Up Press about my upcoming book, which will be released at the beginning of the next year.
Maybe Aneta and Grzegorz, you could say words about your editions, actually, about your work and these different approaches that you're working on in photography.
Actually, Blow Up Press is a family-run publishing house based in Warsaw. We started in 2012. And currently, our main area of interest are the Dog Photo magazine, which is a biannual publication about documentary photography. Then we have also photo books section and also art books based on photography. With the Tomasz project, it is connected with photo books and art books project, because this book will be published family-run publishing house, and also as artist book. Currently, we're going to present the artist book today. And yes, we try to publish books which always say something important about our world and about human beings. All our publications are designed by Aneta, including the magazine and our books. And I think we will provide more details in the later part of our meeting today.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you for this presentation. And maybe let's start discovering more about the project that we are exposing now here in Grenoble and that we will see soon in the book version. So Erna, Helena, Ania. So Thomas, could you tell us what was the starting point for this project?
So I've been working on, as I said before, I've been working on that project for almost 11 years. And I started working on it because I think each of us has this moment when there is this urge of discovering what's happened in our family, I mean, our family stories. So I just started to dig out what was happening in my family. I knew that my grandmother was German, but I was Polish. I used to live in Poland. Now I live in the UK, but I used to live in Poland until my 20s. And I hardly knew anything about this story. So what I discovered was quite astonishing, and I didn't know that for a very long time, that she fell in love with a Polish guy during the Second World War, and this kind of relationship was prohibited. You couldn't be in love with your enemy, from whatever side enemy is, and they if they would be caught, they could be punished for that. So they were hiding this relationship for some time. My grandmother was pregnant with my grandfather, and at the end of the Second World War, she gave birth to my mom. But because of the political situation and by the decision of few key political figures, the borders changed, and that was the biggest migration in the world, which moved around 13 million of people in the span of about 7-10 years. That was starting from 1944 and ending approximately at the early 50s. So because my grandma was German, she was forced to move from Poland, and before moving, she was put into the camp for resettlement. And because of the harsh conditions she had to give up my mom to basically to save her life. Because she was bilingual, she was able to stay in Poland, um, hoping that she will be reunited with my mom, her daughter, at some point. However, because it took it was very difficult for her because she had to give up her nationality to be able to stay in Poland, also change her name. And even though she did all these things, the reunion took many years. They met when my mom was in her teenage years. And the end of the story is that this is what my mom told me when they finally were reunited. My mom was taken by my grandma, and on their way back to her home, she told her, "Why are you taking me with you? I don't love you." And it's very sad because particularly they didn't know each other, and even though it took so many years, it kind of was. It had to be very painful for my grandmother. And then it took them many years to actually get together as a mother and daughter. So that's basically the story of my grandmother. And I started with exploring these things which I found with my family, which each of us has. Like there are family pictures, there are letters, there are postcards, and I started to collect all these things. But at some point, I was so fascinated with that story that I thought I have to do something with this. So at the beginning, I started to put this together in a form of my diary. And then I started to think about putting this in a form of graphic novel. For me, in my practice, a very important part of my practice is actually drawing. So drawing and photography, in a way, is equally for me. I don't do photography and then I add drawings to my stories. It's like kind of equal. However, when I started this project, I literally thought about starting this as a graphic novel. It took me like a few years to put this together, and then I abandoned this project for a while because of some personal issues I had, and the issues were basically that I had problems seeing with. I was divorced and I had problems seeing my kids, and when I came back to this project again after a few years, I realized that the story of my story is in a way similar to the story of my grandma, and gave me a completely different perspective of seeing things. And because I've been working so long for this project, I thought about that maybe it would be interesting, and I actually heard the story from so many sources. I thought that it would be interesting to somehow show this in a form of this story itself, that the story is actually told by many people, not one person. Because at the end of the day, I didn't know this story from one source. I knew it from many sources. And that was this actually next part when I discover how memory work. because, for example, I heard this story from my mom a few times, and each time she told me the story, it was a bit different. To the degree that she even contradicted at some point the previous version of the story. So I started to think how I can actually incorporate that into the form. And then I thought that I want to make a book, and I want to make a book which will mimic the way the memory is preserved. So that's basically, I started to put different elements to this book, like drawings, but then there was so many elements in this story which I didn't know, that I thought that I have to tell the viewer that actually I don't really know all the details. It's kind of unknown, and it's maybe because some people don't want to share it. Maybe it was so painful for them that they don't really want to come back to the events and discuss this. So I came up with idea that all these elements of the story which are unknown for me, I will just cover with pictures, and I added pictures which I hope they give a lot of possibility of interpretation to the viewer. So in a way, the viewer is very important part of this project, because the story is not included in the book. The story is actually suggested, and the story is built by the viewer. So each viewer kind of is expected in a way to create his own version of this story. Of course, there are some elements which I provide with, like the historical background, the outline of story of my grandmother, what I experienced, but none of all these elements are actually included. I mean, not all the details are included in this book. So in a way, I wanted. Yeah.
I was wondering if you still can consider it as a documentary project, or as this role of a viewer as a part of the project, and the responsibility of the viewer is also very big. Would you consider it in some other way?
I mean, I think from the very beginning, it was not documentary project. I deliberately didn't want this to be like a chronicle of events. So of course, I include some of the family pictures into it, but in a way, I wanted this to be more that everyone could, in a way, connect with the story. And I had this experience that I went with this story to Japan, and I thought it's not going to happen that people in Japan will connect with this story, because it's so different. The culture is so different, and the history is completely different. But surprisingly, people very, very quickly connected with it, because some part of the history of Japan is actually there are these resettlements of people, and the people which were put into the camps. So in a way, the outline is the same. So they very quickly connected with what happened, and the response was quite surprisingly good. I don't know. I think I lost the thread in answering your question now.
But I think it is good for the book and for the project that it is so universal, and that it can be read by people from different cultures and different places they live in. because more or less the history likes to repeat. And if it repeats, such stories happen, regardless of the place. So it's from my perspective very important key to read this story as you planned to read it.
It's something like a universal story or somehow in archetypes, because before that, Thomas, you were talking about how did you lead this research and how did you choose actually also not to include everything that you had as the information, because maybe the story, which is a starting point, is still very, very important, but in the core of your project, it's not this story itself, but something larger than this particular story of your grandparents.
Yeah, I mean, there is this feeling of looking for the roots of my family, first of all, and then second of all, there is this feeling of discovering the history. Like some of these elements I'm talking about in this book are actually not so widely discussed in like history books, to the degree that I actually had to dig out the informations in very specific historical books. I also interview a lot of people who used to be somehow related to the people who either knew my grandmother or were in a similar situation. Like, as I said before, she, for example, was put to this resettlement camp, and I don't really know what happened to her. However, I found out a book which was written by a person who was at exactly the same time when she was in this camp, so I can imagine what happened to her. However, I don't know what happened to her, and it's kind of like a very strange situation, because I was not able to find out what happened to my grandmother in the camp, because even if I was reaching the people who were kind of knew what her from that time, they didn't really want to talk about this anymore. But I read the book, and then I knew that there were horrible things happening in this camp. So it gave me this kind of I don't know how to say this, even like very strange feeling about like the story which is not really told still after many years. Like there are these gaps in history, and there are this history elements, these story events we like to talk about, but there are these history elements which are kind of omitted, that we prefer them to be in the background. And I think that's why so many people didn't want to talk to me about this, because at some point this part of the history was not really popular in Poland, and we kind of preferred this to be forgotten in a way. But I mean, this resettlement which happened, of course, it relates to German population, but it wasn't only Germans. Like this migration, because the borders were cutted around whole Poland. So Lithuanians, Ukrainians, Belarusians, all these people were basically moved at this point. It's hard to blame anyone now for anything what happened. It's just part of our history, which hasn't been really discussed, I think, and it was really a big event. So I think it's important to say about that. However, as I said, my book is not a historical book. I just talk about this from very, very, very personal perspective. Like I talk about emotions in the book. I talk about like the loss, the like struggle. That's the subjects I'm covering. However, there is this very, very strong historical background, and like sometimes the historical background is very, it kind of gives us direction. It gives the direction of our life, and it's a bit sad, I think. Like for example, now during the pandemic, like there were events which like you wouldn't believe it can happen, but it actually happened. Like there were people who were deciding about lives of many people, and then it was happening. It was happening in front of the screens. We were like witnessing this, and it's a bit scary. Like, I think.
And probably it shows us somehow the importance to learn these lessons from the history, right? Like if we would want to avoid the repetitions of the sad events, to revisit and to reflect actually on these events, not only in a documentary way, but I mean what you are doing with your work, it's putting a reflection and the personal approach and your personal experience and somehow your personal story from completely another time today. And that's what makes it connected with the current issues, and maybe that's the key why so many people can connect with this story as well, because it doesn't lead us only to this history of the Second World War, but maybe to something that we all have in our histories as the experiences of this loss.
Yeah, I mean, of course, as I said before, it's very personal story. So I also, in a way, explore my story in a phase of story of my grandmother who lost touch with her child for many years, and she was really fighting to be able to be reunited with her again. And in this book, it's true that there are some elements of this kind of multi-generation trauma, which can be passed from one generation to another generation. Like there is this psychological theory that the traumas which were lived by someone in the past, they can be actually in a way inherited by the another generations. And I mean, I don't talk about this directly in this book, but it is a big background of this book, because I experienced kind of similar situation with my daughter, and also I mean the situation with me living in different country. I live in the UK for many years now, but I actually never felt connected to this culture. So in a way, I'm still foreigner here, and there's this there is this feeling of not being part of the place where I live now, and I think this is what was basically big thing of my grandmother, who spent the rest of her life in a country which she was not part of, basically. And she was not welcome being there, because Germans were not generally welcome living in Poland. So I think her life was kind of struggle for most of the time.
Did working on this project help time also the difficulties of your personal story, because you were working on it for many years as well? Did it have some kind of effect? Or what kind of effect did it have maybe on your personal story?
I mean, for sure I enjoyed the part of like researching. I found out that I think this is one of the most interesting part of working on the project. It's like doing like a detective work. So I was trying to find out people who were somehow connected with my grandmother, and I went for a few trips. I went with my mom, for example, for these trips to meet these people, and we had such amazing stories. Like, for example, my grandmother at the end of the World War II, she was actually escaping with all the Germans to Germany, and she was taken with her mom by one of the Polish people who was working with them for them, and we met this. The story is that she basically she went to almost to the Berlin, next to the Berlin, and on her way she met my granddad, and he told her that she should come back and he will take care of her. So she was going back with my grandma to Berlin, but then she decided to come back, and she came back, but nobody was waiting for her. For I don't know for what were the reasons. It's it's hard to say, personal reason or political reasons. And then we met this guy who was actually taking my grandma and my grandma to Berlin. And actually, it was him who told us that my grandma decided to come back. My mom didn't know about that, so it was kind of hidden part of the story. And it was such a discovery that she came back because she believed in love, basically. So that was her motivation. But of course, love is sometimes not enough to survive. Yeah, but to answer your question is it's like for sure for me, I understood a lot about motivations, history, and of course I aged with this story because I was over 30 years old when I started, and then I'm over 40, and it gives me completely different perspective for things, how I see now, how I see history, and also how I see personal stories. Not everything is so black and white as you expect this to be. If there's so many layers in stories, so it's very difficult to say, oh, this is good, this is not good, this is right approach, this is not right approach. You really have to go deep into the story to try to understand what really happened. And also because I'm coming from Poland, from the time when Poland was communist country, I remember the moment when we had in schools we had history books which were saying one thing, and next year, because the communist collapse, all these books were removed from the schools, and we had new history books which were saying completely the opposite thing. And I remember it also gave me this kind of strange perspective on how it is easy to set up minds of many people, just by producing some information which not necessarily is true. So I think from that moment it gave me this kind of, I'm always suspicious. If I read something, I kind of don't really believe in it. I prefer to check it in a way, before I really commit to that.
And I also have a question regarding your artistic statement for this project. You were saying that you're exploring through this project what remains when once lose your country, your family, or something that is normally related to the roots. So did you find the answer for yourself from a very personal point of view to this question? What remains?
I mean, it's very difficult to answer this question. How felt my grandma? If she felt German, if she felt herself still after all this, if she was different person. It's very difficult to answer this question. But I know from my perspective that we are constantly changing, and who we are is also changing all the time. It's like we are in a way work in progress all the time, and it's never it's difficult to say who you are without taking in consideration all your backgrounds and where you're coming from. So I think there's no you cannot say that you are this person because you are coming from somewhere. Of course, it kind of shape you, it builds you, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you are this person for the rest of your life. So the same history can shape you. Sometimes it's in a very rough direction, I think, unpredictable and rough direction.
Thank you for that. Maybe it's a very interesting topic. I think that all of us, we could talk about this very long way, but it will be interesting to explore how did this project, after what you presented to us, how did it come into the reality actually in an exhibition and a book. And maybe we are sitting here in this exhibition space, the exhibition that we installed. I wanted to ask you and Benoit, how did this collaboration basically start? Because it's also, even though we're talking about exhibition now, it's something to do with creation as well. So tell us this story behind.
So, yes. So maybe Ben would say that, because I think
I guess the first time we saw it was in an artist book form. It was one of the first. Can you remind me, Thomas, please? One of the first artist book about the project.
I mean, the book I'm presenting now on the screen is one of the first versions of the book I've done, and I will tell the story of this book, but maybe you will tell your story first, and then I come back to.
Yes, this how we met. I say we because the first time we met was Thomas came in maybe 2 years ago in Arles. To show this book, this version of the book. We were at Allogenieur magazine stand in Arles, and Thomas came with this book and put it in our hands, and immediately, maybe in 10 minutes, we decided to make the next Allogenieur issue with this work, and that. We met. It was a so beautiful work. At one time, when I considered about making Thomas a guest here in Grenoble for an exhibition, I was wondering about how this beautiful work can be on the wall in exhibition space. But maybe Thomas. I see you prepared something about this book. It's a beautiful object.
Thank you. This book has actually a story behind. So basically, I should say that like important part of my practice is being a bookmaker. So I also like designing my work. But I what I publish is very limited edition. It's like 40 copies because everything is handmade, so it's difficult to produce this in a larger form, larger issues. So with this book, when I started to think about this book about this project as a book, I was actually invited from. I was invited. For the festival in Krakow, which is called Paper Lust, and they suggested that I should do exhibition, and they gave me like a free hand what I can do there. So what I've done was actually creating book live during the time of the exhibition, which was I think three. At the end, we ended up doing this in 3 days, or maybe 2.5. So I always wanted to do book which is done using like a very primitive photographic methods. Of course I use printer, I use like Photoshop, I use all this stuff, but I'm very interested in implementing these old-fashioned techniques to actually create something which is kind of very crafted. So what I've done is I built setup for creating book, which was done from cyanotypes. So I was actually exposing this during the duration of the exhibition, and then it was toned in the coffee, and then it was dried, and it was put together in a form of book. And that was the initial dummy for this project. And I kind of was circulating with this book to different people, and people were actually interested in the project and in the book. So I thought I can develop this somehow. And this lead me to, I should mention that I also met Christian Coujon, who helped me at some point with developing the edit for this book. We worked together. I mean, the book I will present later, and which is artist edition of the book, because we also talk about version which is prepared for Blow Up Press, which will be slightly different book. And then I also participated in a workshop with Yumi Goto in Tokyo, and I developed this book further. I've done a few dummies, and I created basically the book which I soon will be releasing together with Blow Up Press as a collaboration project. So this is artist edition of the book I developed during the workshop with Yumi Goto, and then I worked after that on it later. So I kind of implemented the idea of using this old-fashioned technique. Of course, I had to kind of translate it in the language of printing, and it would be not really possible to create maybe it would be, but it took like many probably months to create like 40 copies of book which is done entirely from cyanotypes. So what I've done is I started experimenting with different printing techniques, and I started to use Riso technique, which is quite interesting, and I created this book, which I'm presenting now, using two types of printing, which is inkjet printing and also resop printing. So all the elements, all the graphic elements, drawn elements in the book are actually printed using resop technique. And I used golden ink to kind of to give it kind of feeling of this old-fashioned object. Like I was going through many family albums, and I encountered once talking to one of my further family members, this kind of little book, which apart from the beautiful old-fashioned pictures, had these printed letters which were printed in gold, and this in a way inspired me to go into that direction. So some of these elements are printed using inkjet printing. I used different papers in this book because I thought this actually relates to what I said before, that I wanted to give impression that this book comes from different sources, like in a way that it is told by many people, and it really doesn't create one truth story. It rather creates kind of myth. What really happened, we don't know, but we know some sort of things which happened. And I because like if you collect all this information from different resources, it gives you something, but it doesn't necessarily is true, and it never was my intention to create like a chronicle, as I said before. So that's the reason behind using different materials, techniques, and also papers, is that I wanted to mimic these different voices on the level of physical part of the book. So of course, like if you write a novel, you can implement different kind of narration techniques, and this is what I've done this formally here, which is like using different pictures, different like there are family pictures, historical family pictures, there are mine pictures, and also I use like drawings. I also use text. I use comic, which is silent comic, and I also used comic, more contemporary comic, which is comic with a text. But on top of that, I actually wanted to mimic this in a physical form. So like physical form of the book, what kind of materials I'm using in this book, also mimic the different type of voices used in a story.
Yeah. I already told it. It was a great moment having this artist book in hands. The problem with the artist book is that not much people can see it, and all the challenge now is to make a bigger audience, and that takes us to the next point. Is now how did you make with the Aneta and Gregors in Blowout Press to prepare the large audience edition of this work?
And maybe how
So
they
basically,
offer these two books.
Yeah,
it's very interesting to know.
So basically, as I said before, the book met with quite a lot of interest with different people, So I saw potential of like, and showing this project to larger audience. However, as I said before, I am bookmaker, which actually focuses only on very limited editions, and they are handmade. So I'm not really able to do more than 40 books, or 50 books is maximum, I think. So I saw there was an ad at some point by Blow Up Press, published by Blow Up Press, that they've got this competition. So I applied with my project, and I won this competition, and basically we started to collaborate on that book. And maybe now I pass the conversation to Aneta and Grzegorz, and then they will explain more about that.
Yes, actually we are talking right now about Blow Up Press Book Award, and it is our new competition. We announced it for the first time at the beginning of 2020. And as Thomas said, he is one of two winners of the first edition of this competition. What is interesting, we asked to submit as only pictures, not dummies, not physical things, so only files. And I'm very happy, and I think that Aneta is happy too, that all our jurors decided that Thomas' project should be awarded with our main prize. So we will produce regular edition of Erna, Helena, Ania, as designed by Aneta together with Tomasz. And we will also collaborate together to produce the handmade artist edition by Tomasz himself. And I'm very curious how Aneta will combine all different media Tomasz is using in his project to make a regular edition. But the history of our publishing house is kind of a proof that we like so complicated projects. In our portfolio, you can find a book that already combines archives material and contemporary based archives. And you can find books that use also music and this kind of things. So I think we are very well prepared to produce this book. But I think it is Aneta's task to say a few words about how we are going to make it.
So first of all, Tomek, congratulations once again.
Thank you.
Because I love the way you are talking about your personal story and the media you are using, so such different media, and it is quite challenging to put them together, of course, and you made it very well with your artist book, and it is as I said, challenging, but also fascinating and multi-layered project. And as Grzegorz said, I love that such difficult projects. So hope everybody will be happy at the end with our version. I can tell only that it will be released in March, yes?
February or March.
February or March. I'm not able now to show anything. With every part of the book, we have to first to discuss with Tomek, then show it to the audience. I think not the other way.
But we can say something what the viewers may expect from the book, like for example, different papers or something like this.
Of course, for different kind of media, I like to use also different papers. So it is to make the viewer feel different parts, so in other ways, or to.
So basically, the book we are going to release will follow this. I don't know, the rule that on the background of the entire history, that it is based from different sources. So when you find a book released by Blow Up Press, you will get this feeling that this paper refers to this kind of sources, and other kind of paper refers to another kind of source.
But the most important thing is that each part of the book should be like natural, not forced by any source. And the paper is not the most important thing in the story. The book as a whole should be read very naturally. Like it is okay that this is going. The story is going like very fluently.
Yeah, because we don't like to use different things just to use them.
Yeah.
They have to have some
purpose,
reason,
yeah.
the purpose to be used. And I think that the Erna, Helena, Ania is a great example of how we make this approach alive. Our publishing house has a motto that we try to follow in all of our publications, and this motto is "When the story matters." And I think that Tomek's project is a mirror reflection of this motto, and I'm very happy that we will release this book at the beginning of 2021.
Yeah.
And together with the second winner, which is a completely different book in a completely different project in content. So, but it is not the place to discuss this second winner.
Exactly. So I'm moved by the story, moved by the picture, the drawings, and so on. So I'm happy to work with Tomek.
And I think what is important, and I was amazed by this when I saw the project, because I know this project from 2018. We met with Tomasz in AR, as you did, Ben. And Tomasz shortly presented me entire story without showing anything, if I remember correctly. And then he submitted his project to our competition, and it was, wow, what a story. And I like its universal and also personal feeling. And as Tomasz said, it is, and as Julia, you said, it is like, a universal parachute for everything that is what is happening right now. And yeah. So congratulations, Tomasz, and congratulations, Ben and Julia, to present this project in Grenoble.
Thank you. I can't wait to have the book in hand.
Yeah. To see both of them. I mean, like for you as editors, was it more a challenge as there was already a book, an artist book existing? Was it helpful or was it mostly challenging for you?
I think it is mostly challenging right now because you have like a basic, the artist book is like a start for the next one. So it is therefore is more challenging.
But I think it is good that we didn't know about this artist's book version before.
And for you, Tomasz, you have a vision on both of these books. So what is the main difference between them for you? If you have one book, like your artist book in one hand and a book with Blow Up Press in another hand, what would you say to the audience like about how do they maybe complete each other, or what is it?
Oh my, buy both.
No doubt.
No, the reason why I participated in this competition was because first of all, I love your books. I remember we met in Arles, I think 2 years ago, and I visited your stand, and I really like. I went, I think, through all the books because they are so, at least how I understand designing books, they are so well designed, and then they are so interesting. Like it's not the kind of book you open, you go through it, and then you put it on your shelf, and then it's there for the rest of your life, and you're not gonna take it again because there is no really point of looking at it again. These are like fascinating stories which. I like this kind of books, when you can actually dig inside, and that's why I'm so happy that actually I was able to win this competition because this is kind of the uh, the way I like books to be designed. So, I mean, books designed by Aneta are like amazing for me. So I don't think I would add anything to this. So I think.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for your trust.
It's
And
yeah.
as you said, we don't like books that are like Thomas said, just to read them one time and forget about it. We like books that are thought-provoking. We like books that force readers to come back. So we are not afraid of difficult topics and the topics that some people would like to deny, as it is happening right now in Poland with the stories like Tomasz presents in his Erna, Helena, Ania.
Mm.
And it's interesting to see this project in different perspectives, in the perspective of the exhibition that we see even now on the screen or behind us, and in this perspective of the book. Like, does it give you a feeling, Thomas, that it's like these different elements of this project, and altogether it gives a complete project?
Yeah, I mean,
like that.
First of all, book is for me the main medium, and I kind of always think about book. But of course, book, and I love book because book gives this intimate relationship with the viewer. Like it's just kind of one to one, and you can actually go very deep, like to have like full attention. Exhibitions are different because exhibitions are like, especially during the opening, it's more about drinking wine and talking to other people than looking at the work. So I mean, for me, actually, this is the first exhibition when I'm presenting the pictures on the walls. I actually never do that. My previous exhibitions were kind of multimedia exhibitions where the images were actually disappearing during the duration of the exhibition, and like I always try to experiment. I mean, I always try to translate what I wanted to say in the book into the form of exhibition. However, here it was a bit challenging because of this COVID situation. So it was like difficult to go to the Grenoble, and I'm not there anymore there. So it's like it was. I mean, I'm still thinking about because I actually will be presenting this project also in Tokyo in the next year at some point. I don't know exactly when because the date is not set up. But to be honest, I think I will develop this exhibition. I want to add a few multimedia elements. I mean, I've got so much material which is not included in the book. So I really want to use this because, it would be waste not to use it. So of course I will include the pictures I've done, especially for that exhibition. The cyanotypes we are seeing now on the walls, they are they were done especially for the exhibition in the Grenoble, and they are quite big. I mean, maybe you can see the scale from. They are about like 1 meter.
It's 70 by 1 meter. 70
Yeah.
centimeters by 100 centimeters.
So the problem was to actually expose them. I started to do that in the summer when I could use sun, because I don't have lamp big enough to actually expose this kind of pictures. So it was. I mean, I really love working with prints. Like when I shoot something, it's never like what I see on the screen. Let's say I scan something, even if I use analog, I scan something, then it's never the final thing for me. The final thing is what I do with the picture later, how I print it, and the print and the physical object is actually what I'm looking for. So I was kind of experimenting, first time doing this big format, and it was fun. I really like it. I wish I could spend more time. I wish I could have more money to invest into equipment and do more things like that, because it is fun for me to actually like translate the image into physical object. And
the physical dimension has its importance here in the exhibition. A lot of people are asking for, what is this? What's this paper?
I mean, this is Japanese paper. Then this is done on Japanese paper. It's a Kozo Japanese paper. I actually want to. I actually wanted to make my own paper, but I think that's the next level. I'm actually, like I'm planning to learn a few things in my life still. So one of the things is making paper. So maybe next project it will be done with my paper.
So it actually shows a great perspectives, like to follow this project that you had already spent more than 11 years on, and now you're talking about developing in both the multimedia direction and the very physical paper direction as well. It's very encouraging, especially in this time of COVID, when we need this encouragement and to see future projects.
I mean, I think this 11 years was a kind of time of learning, researching, exploring, like thinking, and also meditating about the thing. And now it's, I think, time of executing. So, I don't think about this anymore. I just try to execute this. So I in a way, this exhibition is like a first attempt to show this in a form of exhibition. So in a way, it will be developed. It's not a final form of the project yet, I think. But Ben, thank you very much for this possibility of showing the project at your gallery. I really, really appreciate that.
It's a pleasure for me. You accepted to come here and to show your pictures here.
Yeah, I wish I could spend more time in Grenoble too.
Yes, next time you can come. And
yeah,
one thing we didn't say, that we had planned to make a workshop with you here in Grenoble during the festival, and we could keep the exhibition but not the workshop. Maybe someday later.
So we still have this space for collaboration, luckily. And looking forward to see the books coming. So for the audience who is watching that, you can follow actually on the social media of Blow Up Press. I think you can be updated this way, or also in Tomasz or Studio Spiral or Month of Photography Instagram pages. So it will be interesting to see in a few months how it come up actually.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm also interested how it's gonna come out.
Who isn't?
Yeah. Thank you
So thank you very much to everyone.
for this interesting talk that gave us perspectives actually on the work.
Just one note before ending the streaming. English was the only language we have both in common, but within the next day we will translate it
to French
and subtitle it in French because we need it here. And maybe in the commentary on the YouTube channel, Thomas, we can make every website to blow up press, your own work, here the month of the photography and the studio spiral in the next days.
Okay.
So let's stay in touch, all of us, and with our audience as well for new photographic adventures.
Thank you very much for everyone who joined us during this conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much for watching.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.